Well, it's been a hot minute since we've talked about something that wasn't a crappy comedy or a crappy family movie or kids movie on the show. So, trying to look outside the box to other genres, talk about maybe action movies or superhero movies. I came across one that I always kept hearing was bad, but I never actually watched for myself, so I figured, why not? It'd be the perfect time to talk about it. And that movie in question is 1984's Supergirl.
She came halfway across the universe in search of a cosmic power source that could save her world from destruction.
Who is she?
Who on earth are you?
You know, I think I recognize the costume.
From the producers of Superman, Alexander Salkind presents Supergirl in her first great adventure.
Wait a minute, wait 1 minute. I mean, you can do the whole number, leap tall buildings at a single bound. You can look right through things.
Yes.
Bend steel bars?
Yes.
Like Superman.
He's my cousin.
Supergirl, sent to Earth on a secret mission that brings her face to face with diabolical villains.
I'm considering nothing less than world domination.
Unspeakable evil.
You've had your fun, Selena. The game is finished.
Once the movie ended, it then hit me that this was a female-led superhero movie from 1984, and then it just made me think, well, this was still better than Wonder Woman 84. Do you guys remember the 80s? Remember neon colors and all the 80s pop music and shopping malls and breakdancing and Blockbuster Video? Oh wait, no, Blockbuster Video was Captain Marvel. Fuck, damn it! See, that's the problem with having so many superhero movies out at the time, because then they start to run together. Alright, so I would read the description for Supergirl, but there's two different descriptions and they're both incredibly short. Like, first off on Google, it just says,
Yes.
Kara of Argo City poses as Clark Kent's cousin, Linda Lee, to recover the Omega Hadron from an evil Terran sorceress based on DC Comics characters. And on IMDb, it's just one sentence. It just says, after losing a powerful orb, Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin, comes to Earth to retrieve it and instead finds herself up against a wicked witch. And as for ratings, it's surprisingly the lowest of the movies we'll be looking at this month. It's 4.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 1 out of 5 on some website called Real Views. Considering the other two movies we're looking at after this, that is surprisingly low. This one is different. This is from a different era. This is before the current wave of superhero movies where they have like 8 of them coming out a year and they have like 2 or 3 different comic book inspired shows on TV or streaming. This was during the early days. This was, I believe, after Superman 3. I guess trying to capitalize on the name, they decided they'd make a Supergirl movie. And, well, the end result is a very clunky and disorganized mess. The basic plot is that Supergirl's home planet is in distress because this magical orb that helps keep their people safe from evil outside forces ends up getting lost, and it ends up landing, of course, on planet Earth. And she's apparently the only one who can save the day. I was getting real Masters of the Universe vibes with that opening. They take place in fantasy worlds, and then they just go to Earth for the rest of the movie because, well, they couldn't have that be the entire movie. That'd be expensive. All throughout this, I'm going to try and talk about the cast of this movie because it actually has a pretty decent cast. But some people are either phoning in their performances, they're going way too over the top with it, or then you got people who show up for just a couple scenes and then they are gone from the movie. 2 actors that come to mind in this opening are Mia Farrow, who's only in this one scene, and she's apparently Supergirl's mom. But yeah, it's like, wow, Mia Farrow, one of the most like well-known and beloved actresses of the 70s, and she's only in this one part. That was surprising.
Starting to repeat yourself here with all this airy, glittery stuff.
More importantly, you got Peter O'Toole, who's like her kind of father figure, mentor guy. They're not really specific as to like what his role is, but he just tells Supergirl about all this stuff that they need to do to help keep the planet safe, and that they need this magical orb. On this planet, it looks like a giant honeycomb, and everyone is just like donned in heavenly white flowing robes. It was reminding me a little bit of After Earth, the way it's like, you know, oh, in this futuristic society, apparently everything is held together with with plastic wrap and cloth. There's like little to no like scientific technology or anything like that. Anyway, I bring up Peter O'Toole because he is in 2 scenes in this movie. He's in the opening, and then he shows up later, and his scene later on is hilarious, so I'll try to save that for later. But the point is, Peter O'Toole, he's trying, he really is, he's a good actor, but every time he was on screen, he just had this look like, I cannot wait to get off set and just have a good case of scotch.
Earth? You mean where my cousin went?
And where, one day soon, perhaps I might venture as well.
You could never survive the pressure. It would
And that
destroy
I can.
you.
Zip, zap, and I'm gone.
And so the cousin of Kal-El, Zor-El, as she's called, or Linda Lee, as she adopts as a Earth name once she gets there, aka Supergirl, must go to Earth to find the Omegahedron and help save her people. Now, I will say this. Helen Slater, after all these years rewatching this movie, I don't think that she was that bad as Supergirl in the movie. I think she looked the part, and despite some of the stupid material she was given, I actually thought that she could have been really good. I don't know if it was Christopher Reeve level, but she was definitely trying, even though this was, I believe, her debut movie, and she was only like, I think 19 at the time. She actually did pretty good, despite the stupid material she was given. That being said, there's a lot of really dumb things that happen in this movie. Like, for instance, I find it funny that as she's traveling to Earth, she's traveling through space, and then the next thing we know, in a weird, clunky bit of editing, she, like, rises from a lake, and she just all of a sudden has the Supergirl costume. I don't know. There was this weird trend with superhero movies back then where they didn't really explain where the super suit came from. Like, come on. Even the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie explained how they got their super suits.
Well, what do you think?
So as she goes wandering through the woods, she ends up wandering into this small town where, of course, the Omegahedron just so happened to land in that vicinity. And she's at first approached by some perverted truckers who try to make advances towards her, but of course, being Supergirl, she has super strength and she's able to knock these 2 on their asses.
You really want to play games, eh, sweetheart? Come on.
This is one of the many times where they reference Superman, and I did appreciate that, because even though I knew we weren't going to get a Christopher Reeve appearance, I was at least appreciative that they tried to make some kind of connection, because right away they're like, oh, look at your costume, girl, oh, you look like Superman, and then she's like, oh, we're cousins. Okay.
You're, Superman's best friend, huh?
No. His cousin.
They do that all throughout the movie, where they constantly like make little name drops to Superman, and I found this out on IMDb. They apparently intended for Christopher Reeve to not only show up, but actually be a supporting character.
Do you know him?
Superman? Sure. My sister's got something going with the big guy.
In a mixture of not liking how Superman 3 turned out, and just general fatigue from playing the character so many times, he decided to sit this one out. Unfortunately, I guess a contract or some kind of piece of paper that he signed resulted in him having to come back for Superman 4, Quest for Peace. As stupid as this movie is, I gotta say, this movie was a little bit better than that one. I mean, you want to talk about bad superhero movies from back in the 80s? Man, Superman convinces all the world's nations to give up nuclear warheads. He puts them into a giant net, throws them into the sun, it explodes, and then it creates some kind of evil Superman clone guy who has nuclear powers, and his name is Nuclear Man. God, that movie was stupid. But to make up for the fact they didn't have Superman or even Lois Lane show up in this movie, instead they at least got the same guy who played Jimmy Olsen in the other Superman movies. So that's something. The closest thing to a connection, they got Jimmy Olsen.
What is wrong with him? No.
He's probably on drugs, and he's gonna get creamed if he's not too careful. Hi, Jimmy Olsen, photographer.
As for where the magical MacGuffin orb had landed, it landed in the middle of a picnic between the priest in Princess Bride and his girlfriend, woman he's dating, woman he's seeing, and the main villainess of the movie, Selena, played by Faye Dunaway. Yes, the same Faye Dunaway from Mommy Dearest.
No more hangers!
When she just happens to be studying the dark arts, that's another thing. She's just casually studying witchcraft and black magic. This is important because that's the main thing of the movie. She wants the Omegahedron so that way she can have all the magic and all the power in all the world, and she can take over. And she ends up kicking her wormy man friend to the curb. After she gets her hands on it, there's a couple of scenes where she invites some friends and cohorts over to her house, her lair. You know, she invites all these people over for a fancy get-together, and she gets to show off her awesome dark magic through the...
Stop it, Selena! That's not fair! Pick on me!
The funniest thing about her character is that, you know, there's one scene where she's talking to like some woman friend of hers, and she's like, yes, with this I will have all the power in the world, I can do whatever I want. And then as they come to a stop, they see the main love interest for the movie, played by Hart Bochner, also known as the guy who sold out John McClane in the first Die Hard movie.
Why are we not moving? Because I'm in love. Come here, you beautiful thing.
The point here is he's a hunky landscaping guy, he takes off his muscle shirt, and in that moment, that becomes pretty much the rest of the movie, that she wants him to fall in love with her. She just then puts all of her taking over the world plans on the back burner so that she can try to get this guy to fall in love with her. She creates a love potion, and he drinks it, and then he ends up, instead of seeing her and falling in love with her, he goes wandering for a little bit, and then he ends up seeing Supergirl, and so now he falls in love with her. And so that's pretty much what starts a lot of the conflict. It starts with the Omegahedron and trying to get that back, but then it quickly becomes essentially just one prolonged catfight. Nothing against Hart Bochner. I mean, you know, even though the character was generically written, he's just a good-looking stud muffin so that these two ladies can fight over his affection. He was trying. I give him credit. Like I said, like there are some people in this movie who, despite really shit material, they're trying. So I give him credit for that. The movie's problem is that this is a Supergirl movie. This is a superhero film where barely any superhero things actually happen in it. I mean, we do get the scene where she kicks the truckers' asses, and there are like 2 or 3 set pieces where Supergirl has to stop some kind of evil that Selena is up to. One of these set pieces is very early on. It's like shortly after she first sees Hart Bochner and falls in love with him. She uses her dark magic to take over like some kind of digger at the construction site so that it picks him up and takes him away, but then Supergirl springs into action and saves him. All the while this is being filmed in front of the big product placement for the movie, a Popeye's chicken. I swear to God, this is product placement on the same level as Man of Steel. I swear to God. There's another scene kind of in the middle of the movie where she faces off against Selena, and it's like at a fairground or a carnival, and she's making some of the attractions come to life, and oh no, they're about to hit someone, but then Supergirl swoops in and saves them. The movie needed way more stuff like this. Like, you look at the first 2 Superman movies with Christopher Reeve in them, they have the perfect balance of action and superhero stuff and character stuff. This movie could have had really compelling character stuff, but the characters aren't written that interestingly. I mean, you know, you have an interesting setup, but unfortunately, everyone doesn't really have a lot of proper motivation. There's less of Supergirl saving people from peril, and there's more Popeye's chicken product placement, for one.
Hey, Linda. I'll see you later at Popeye's then, okay?
All right, I'll try, I promise.
You better.
And secondly, there's this whole thing when she comes to Earth and she goes into her human disguise as Linda Lee, Clark Kent's cousin, and she enrolls into this all-girls college, and from there, there's a lot of stuff going on at this place, and there's like these scenes where they're like, it's like an old 80s comedy where they're getting into sorority pranks and like, you know, oh, there's the mean dean who doesn't really like her, and there's the catty bully girls who she ends up standing up to. And
why don't you shut up the hot and give them an ice bath?
If you shut off the cold, you might scald them, so they lose a little skin. Serves them right. I want to see them suffer.
Because after all, when you think of a Supergirl movie, who doesn't immediately think college sorority pranks? Or Popeye's chicken? There is a lot more of this than there is of Supergirl actually fighting crime or trying to save people in danger. And it was just so weird. It was like we were watching like a PG, like Porky's or Animal House knockoff. It's like, what is this? This is not a Supergirl movie. Even when they're not doing anything like that, there are these weird scenes where, because again, it was the 80s, people just, I guess, didn't know how to write compelling female characters, especially in really weak movies like this. Nowadays, the common criticism is that when they can't write actually compelling, strong female characters, they just write them as archetypical girl bosses. There are these scenes where Supergirl is just in the woods playing with bunny rabbits.
Good morning.
And flying through the sky, and then she goes down and swerves by some horses frolicking through a field. It doesn't even feel like the movie's doing it to be mean-spirited or anything. It just feels like they didn't know how to write a Supergirl movie, so they're just like, oh, just have her play with bunny rabbits and frolicking with ponies. That's what girls like, right? Since we're talking about the flying effects, those are probably some of the best effects in the movie. They actually do look on par with the first two Superman movies, and generally speaking, a lot of like the wire work and stuff, it's impressive. That was actually one of the few things I did like. It's like, you've got some okay special effects going on here, some good practical effects. The green screen on that part wasn't perfect, but it looked fine. However, there are two effects that I have to talk about because of how fucking lame they are. First of all, in one of the encounters she has with Selena, she summons a shadow creature to go up against her, which basically just means it's the actress on wires punching at nothing, and then they add punch sound effects later. Then you get to the third act, where admittedly things kind of started to pick up, but only kind of. So what happens is Selena finally remembers, oh yeah, the magical MacGuffin orb, she's going to use it to get all the power in the world. She uses it to banish Supergirl to the Phantom Zone, which was just reminding me I could be watching Superman 2 instead. And she ends up on this like knockoff Dune planet. Like there's storms going on, and they say that there's like large dangerous creatures on the planet as well. And Peter O'Toole is there. He helps her traverse across the desert, but he ends up getting swept away in a tornado.
I am with you.
I can't tell which is funnier, the tornado scene in this or the tornado scene in Man of Steel. The point is, Supergirl gets back to Earth. It becomes like a video game level all of a sudden because like her friends and close constituents, her love interest, even the former boyfriend, companion guy, the priest from Princess Bride, they're all in cages over like a bed of spikes, and they have like flames coming up from some of the tiles. And so it's this big standoff between Selena and Supergirl. And she ends up summoning this dragon creature, which at first I'm like, okay, it's not a great animatronic or anything, but it looks okay, I guess. But then they have this horrible effect where it picks her up and starts stretching her. It doesn't look like she's being stretched at all. Like, it just looks like it's her on green screen, like, screaming in pain, and then they just went into editing and, like, they took out the green screen and they're like, okay, well, we can kind of, like, adjust the frames on this shot just a little bit to kind of make it look like she's being stretched, but it doesn't look right. They clearly didn't master effects like that well. That was easily the worst effect in the whole movie. That looked like shit. The point is, she defeats Selena, she gets the Omega Hadron back, she says goodbye to all of her friends, says goodbye to Hart Bochner, her love interest, and she flies off back to her home planet into the sunset. Movie over. Overall thoughts, this movie was very cheesy. It's clearly an 80s movie, but at the same time, as dumb as hell as it is, and as poorly written as some of the characters are, some of the performances are good, some are really hammy and over the top. I kind of wish Faye Dunaway was a little bit more of a compelling villainess, because really, like, her whole motivation was, oh, she's evil lady who wants to take over the world because reasons. She wants to have all the magic in the world, I guess. And she also wants to get laid. Okay, that's it. And I wish that there was more Supergirl doing Supergirl-like things. I feel like a lot of it was spent on, you know, her frolicking through the fields with flowers and ponies and bunny rabbits. And if it wasn't that, you got 3 action set pieces, and one of them was really well choreographed, I will admit, but the rest of the plot is just weighed down with college comedy shenanigans and references to better movies we could be watching instead. You know, there's a part where they stop and look at a poster of Superman, and I'm like, it really just kept reminding me, like, yeah, we really wanted Christopher Reeve to be in this one, but sadly he didn't want to. And it's like, I just could be watching Superman 1 or 2 right now instead. Those are really good. I feel like with stronger writing, it could have been a better Supergirl movie. And credit where it's due, the music is good, some of the effects are good, the performances aren't terrible, and in fact, I think Helen Slater actually was a good Supergirl. I just wish she had better material. Apparently enough people liked her as Supergirl because she did come back in other things. For some reason they didn't have her, they have a CG version of her for that Flash movie from what I heard, but she did come back in a couple of things. She came back in Smallville, and she came back for that CW Supergirl show. So I guess enough people liked her as the character to have her come back, so that's nice. Compared to some of the other super heroine movies I've reviewed before, I'll say this. It's probably a better movie than Catwoman, because, like, some of the cheesy effects in this, I could at least chalk up to, like, it was the 80s. People didn't really have a proper grasp on how to do really cutting-edge special effects. Versus the really shit CGI that was in Catwoman. It's like CG Halle Berry jumping around on walls and all the, like, weird city transition shots that look like something from a PlayStation 1 game. So production-wise, I would say Supergirl was better than Catwoman. But at the same time, I think Catwoman was so bad it was good. And I can at least remember a ton of things from Catwoman because of how bad it was. I remember the bad love interest in that, the fact that he didn't seem to pick up on the fact that the girl he was dating was also Catwoman. The dumb comic relief characters, like the flamboyant gay guy in her office and the Alex Borstein character who was there to show up and say inappropriate, sassy things. Sharon Stone being the villain who had this, like, face ointment cream that turned her face into solid marble. And, oh yeah, let's not forget all the dumb cat wordplay and, like, all the scenes where it's like, oh, Halle Berry hissing at dogs and jumping from bookshelf to coffee table and eating tuna and sushi, because that's what cats do. The other thing I can give Supergirl, and the other thing I can give this movie, is that it was more memorable than Elektra. Seriously, the only thing I remember from Elektra are ninjas that turn into green gas and the fact that Jennifer Garner was in it. That's it. That's all I remember. But believe me, as dumb as this movie was, I feel like it's probably going to be one of the better movies we're talking about this month, because next time we're looking at a dumb buddy comedy. It's specifically a buddy road trip comedy, in a manner of speaking. It came out in 2015, and, well, it had Reese Witherspoon and Sofia Vergara in it. But that's for next time. Until then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Popeye
spice chicken is fucking awesome.